I'm supporting Trump now with more enthusiasm because I feel as though people like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Gavin Newsom, the typical Democrat establishment is so afraid of the rocks that Trump might turn over and find things underneath that they don't want the American people to know. I mean, they have not been straight with us, folks. They have not been straight with us.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
It's July 16th, 2024, and a lot has changed in the last few days. Where to begin? There is so much to talk about that it's almost overwhelming, but we're going to give it a go. I'm going to tell you why I wrote an open letter to Donald Trump on my Substack way back. When was this? November of 2022. Yeah, November 10th, 2022. I wrote on my Substack an open letter to Donald Trump that says, I'm going to take a lot of heat for this, but here I go. I'll tell you what I said, and I'll tell you what I'm saying now. That is all coming up. We're going to get a quick visit from James Fishback of Incubate Debate to talk about what this assassination attempt, can you believe it? Assassination attempt. And you know what's weird is people are already poo-pooing it. I'll get to that as well and explain what I mean, because this is a bizarre time we're living in, and it seems like there's very little humanity left, but the sparks of it are there, and I'm encouraged by those sparks. So we will get into all of that and talk about why I am now fully decided on my presidential vote. But first, facing inflation, there's a hint. Facing inflation, surging debt, and worldwide uncertainty, you are not alone. Central banks and many Americans are stockpiling gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time. Trust Priority Gold to help you review your portfolio and diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text the word golden to 800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide on how to get started. That text golden to 800-405-GOLD and find out what you can do to integrate precious metals into your portfolio. Trump, J.D. Vance, Amber Rose, Joy Reid, Morning Joe. We'll get into all of it in moments. Back in November of 2022, it seems like forever ago, and it was not even 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I wrote on my Substack, and it's still the most viewed piece on my Substack, an open letter to Donald Trump. And in it, I said this: Dear President Trump, I'm going to take a lot of heat for this, but here it goes. Please don't run for president again. You probably don't care about my opinion in your eyes, and I'm guessing here, I'm just a washed up has-been sports reporter who's got a little podcast. In short, what Trump might call a loser. You probably don't care about my opinion, but you should care about my opinion. After all, I'm an American, and you say you love America. And if you genuinely love America, you should put her future above your own. You did some great things for the United States during your 4 years in the White House, and you accomplished a lot in spite of the fact that you were constantly fighting headwinds. And then I go on to detail what he did on the economy, on national defense, on energy, on international relations. The Abraham Accords were nothing short of a miracle. So yeah, I went in, I gave him a lot of credit. I did. But then I said, meanwhile, there's a deep bench of promising, young, diverse candidates that America on the whole may be willing to consider, because while about half the country loves you, the other half can't stand you or are afraid of you. This is November of 2022. I listed Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Glenn Youngkin, Kristi Noem, and I said to him, you can be the kingmaker. So I didn't have on that list J.D. Vance, but I did have a number of other people who were being considered for the vice presidential candidate. But what I was asking almost 2 years ago was for Trump to step down. We were in the wake still of the January 6th hearings. Things were not like they are right now. But ever since Trump did declare that he was going to run, in fact, in 2024, what the opposition has thrown at him has opened my eyes. They've thrown everything at him. Lawsuits, what a lot of people call lawfare. And it's hard to disagree with that. When you look at what happened in New York, and he was convicted of misrepresenting a hush money payment of $130,000, that's a lot of money to most of us. That's not a lot of money to Donald Trump. And, people can say, no one's above the law. Well, I can tell you, no one else in New York or maybe anywhere in the country has been tried for such a ridiculous charge. So a lot of people saw through that. They saw what happened in Atlanta with the charges down there with Fonnie Willis and her lover, and how that thing just imploded, and how attached the White House appeared to be to all of these accusations, this lawfare. And I started to say to myself, dang, I know Trump can be a really unlikable character at times. And I know people personally who actually use the word hate about Donald Trump. A lot of people hate him. So I know that that's there. I get it, right? A lot of people hated Winston Churchill, and a lot of people hate him since for, they decided after the fact that he was racist, and so he should not have statues of himself. Winston Churchill. Okay, so putting that aside, I'm thinking to myself, what are these people so afraid of? I mean, they're terrified. And no, it's not because they think he's going to be Hitler. I mean, the accusations they have made that he's going to be Hitler put people in camps, fire journalists. Did he do any of that in his first 4 years? He may not have handled pressers the best. Did he put any journalists in prison or behind bars or have them lose their jobs? Anyone? No one that I can think of. Did he put immigrants in, the thing about kids in cages? Those photos were from the Obama era, as a matter of fact. They have thrown everything at him. They've thrown impeachment charges that, again, I don't think would have stuck to other candidates. The J6 thing, January 6th, as I told you until recently, I was pretty agnostic about it. I was like, yeah, a bunch of crazy people did some stupid things. But then we had actor Nick Searcy on this show. And not only is Nick Searcy a successful actor, he also produced a couple of films. And the one that we highlighted was about January 6th. And he interviewed some people and showed some footage that I had never seen before. And I had to ask myself, why have I never seen this before? It's legitimate. It's actual footage from the day. We see how the one victim was shot at point blank range. There's a lot there that I thought, this is weird. So I when conspiracy theories come up, I tend to go a little, yeah, hold off. I'm not going there. But I've had other people watch the film since, people that I know that, like me, were sort of like, yeah, January 6th, it was not 9/11. It was not Pearl Harbor. And then they've watched this film and they've gone, what? Why are these people being treated like, murderers? The way that some of these people have been treated is simply un-American. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. So that opened my eyes. The other thing that's opened my eyes is the absolutely abysmal performance of the current person in the White House. And I'm going to say I'm not even sure Joe Biden's responsible for it, because I'm not even sure Joe Biden's running the country. I think we've known for quite a while that the verbal gaffes have been picking up. His physical stature doesn't seem the same, as he's tripped upstairs, tripped downstairs, fallen off a bike. And I'm uncomfortable with this because I've lost both my parents. Both had physical ailments toward the end. But look, this is the president of the United States, who is a symbol of this country. And everyone who shouted at me that, Trump, when he was in the White House, would say things unbefitting of a president. Well, I think Biden is doing things that are unbefitting of a president. And let's just get away from the age and the infirmity and what we saw in plain sight at the debate. Getting away from that, the policies have been absolutely abysmal. Where it comes to Iran, China, Israel, I'm not there yet on Ukraine. I tend to support Ukraine. Don't yell at me if you're an isolationist. Come on now, we help our neighbors. I'm not. Look, I'm not a unithinker. I don't just agree with everyone who is a conservative or an independent or a libertarian or in the Republican Party. But what I can tell you is this current White House, I don't even know what the worst word is that I can use, so I go to abysmal. The policies have been abysmal. And here we are today, and I can tell you, I still don't think we know who's running the country. So I've been given a choice. The choice is binary: Biden or Trump. And since all of this has been happening to Trump, we've had a chance to observe him under attack. He has sat through every court case. He has paid the things they've asked him to pay financially. He has come up with the funds to do it. He has continued to speak to America, to go to rallies. And then, I'm sitting in my kitchen with my son. My husband nonchalantly walks out of his office and says, "Did you guys see that the president got shot at today?" Biden? No, Trump. Trump got shot at today. He fell down. Like, he kind of is a dad joke kind of guy, so we didn't believe him. So then we turned on the television and we saw with our own eyes what had just happened. And to me, it was all startling. But I got to tell you, I'm with everyone else. When the man made sure he could put his fist in the air and say, "Fight," I don't know. Kind of reminded me of Mel Gibson in Braveheart when right before he's going to get his head chopped off, he says, "Freedom." The difference is Mel Gibson got his head chopped off, or Braveheart did. And Trump missed it by this much. So now everyone says take the temperature down in your rhetoric. That lasted about 6 minutes, and the rhetoric is still up. After this break, I'm going to tell you what I think of that Biden Bullseye comment. And you may not agree with me, and you might. So let's get into that in just 1 second. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred: free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom that we cherish. But here we are in a digital age, and discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are they're being silenced, maybe overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And that leaves a lot of people feeling like they don't have a voice in those conversations that are crucial to our financial independence and security. And this is where wealth protection research steps in. Armed with a mission that's never been more critical, Wealth Protection Research isn't a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas, that the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. And listeners can get it completely free by texting the word ideas to 76626, IDEAS, plural ideas, to 76626. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now by texting ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, but of course you can, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy now.
You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy. It's part of human nature. But politics must never be a literal battlefield, or God forbid, a killing field.
So reportedly on a call with donors recently, Joe Biden said we have to put Donald Trump in the bullseye. To me, that's nothing. It's a nothing burger. He said it on a call to some donors. This is not the kind of rhetoric that would influence a shooter. I mean, what is the Target logo? It's a bullseye. I think their little dog mascot is named Bullseye. When you play darts, you want to get a bullseye. Bullseye doesn't necessarily have to do with shooting. This bullseye comment, to me, it was nothing. It was benign. The comments that could have persuaded a 20-year-old young man who maybe is seeking attention were things like, you're in a cult. He is Hitler. He is a threat to democracy. He is a danger to our very institutions. He will be a dictator on day one. He wants a bloodbath. Those are the comments that stand out to me as the most ridiculous, stupid, insightful comments that the media has propagated, a certain part of the media has propagated ever since Trump decided to run again. Maybe since J6, maybe since January 6th. Even today, I heard someone talk about J.D. Vance, who is now the vice presidential nominee, and say he'll serve the cult. I think people are finally at their limit. I think part of this started when Donald Trump was convicted of a nothing burger, what they turned a misdemeanor into a felony in New York. He gets convicted. What happens? His poll numbers go up a little bit and the donations flood in. That was one. Number two was the debate. And we saw who really is Joe Biden, meaning who really is running the White House. Like, who is running the country? I honestly, every day I ask myself, who's running the country today? Because I don't believe it's Joe Biden. I think he's completely turned into a puppet. And then the third thing, of course, was this assassination attempt in Butler. And suddenly you're seeing people you wouldn't really see before, whether it's on X, whether it's on Instagram, wherever, rallying to the defense of this president. And then he walks out on stage at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee last night, July 15th, with the gauze on his ear. And he, puts his fist in the air a little bit more gingerly. He takes it in. He looks a little more subdued. I don't know what's going through his mind. I'd love to talk to him and interview him and find out what he was thinking as he was walking out there to that thunderous applause. But I think when people saw him get up with blood on his ear and his face and make the Secret Service stop moving him so he could turn to the crowd, put his fist in the air and say, fight, fight, keep fighting. That's when people went, whoa, Nelly. There's been a lot of comparison of people saying, Joe Biden always says, when you get down, you got to get back up. When you fall, you got to get back up. Well, I can't think of another example of getting back up from falling that is as powerful as the one that we saw. And the photographs they are now iconic, right? They're iconic. But this is not why I'm voting for Trump. This is not why I'm going to support Trump. I'm supporting Trump now with more enthusiasm because I feel as though people like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Gavin Newsom, the typical Democrat establishment is so afraid of the rocks that Trump might turn over and find things underneath that they don't want the American people to know. I mean, they have not been straight with us, folks. They have not been straight with us. Here's a micro example. Remember the Inflation Reduction Act, which is essentially a Green New Deal? And I thought, okay, bipartisan support, whatever, it got voted across. Well, a couple days ago, our air conditioner broke, and I was told by the people who are going to replace our air conditioner, I don't have a choice about what I want to install. Oh, I do, but it's like a tiny little choice between, and he went through all these regulations with me, and this is why, and he said, and I'm not going to name the company. He said, this is part of the Inflation Reduction Act. He said, you should see the amount of paperwork I have on my desk to comply with this act. No, we can't just show up and replace your air conditioner. You've got to get this new technology, and they're going to give you this massive rebate. And I'm like, how are they affording these rebates to us? And he said, basically, the Inflation Reduction Act put aside $400 billion for rebates. So, you know where that $400 billion comes from? It's tax dollars. So I'm paying my taxes, and then I get a rebate, but it's other people's money and some of my own money just coming back to me. And I think it's stupid. There were a lot of other things too. Unbelievable kinds of bribes, if you will, in order to buy the technology that this administration wants you to buy. So in talking to this contract, it was eye-opening. So look, I'm an environmentalist. I love taking care of the planet. I do it very diligently in my house and in all walks of life for me. So this isn't about that. This is about the government trying to force the markets to do something that the government wants it to do. Now, take your industry and imagine that the government decides to strong-arm things into what you do. And it either goes against what you believe, or it goes against your profit margins, or whatever. Maybe it helps you. But if it helps you, then what if the opposition party gets in? Will they turn it around and then it'll hurt you? This is why we don't want government meddling in this kind of aspect of our lives. Because this is like central planning. For Joe Biden to come out and say, we're going to get rents under control. What? It's what the market will bear. So there are a lot of reasons to be unhappy with this current administration, and that is just another one. But what happened a few days ago in Butler is already being poo-pooed. I think it was Joy Reid today who said Trump has to stop playing the victim. A, I didn't know he was. And B, this comes from a person who is constantly trumping up, no pun intended, victimology. So we're going to talk to James Fishback of Incubate Debate and get some thoughts from him as well today, because there is so much going on that it's hard to really organize your thoughts. But my one thought is right now, I know who I'm voting for without a doubt. And I'm not afraid. And I'm not in a cult. I just would like the country to be safe again. I'd like us to know who we're letting through our borders. I would like the police to feel as though they have morale again. I would like inflation to come down. I would like the future to be brighter for my kids. I don't want to feel like I'm fighting back against Marxist ideologies like critical race theory and critical gender theory. And so I kind of would like some sort of middle ground in America, and we are not getting it from this White House or the left. That is for sure. So there we go. James Fishback's going to join us next. I like to talk about my friends at besthotgrill.com. They also make the best gas logs for your fireplace. And I know it's summertime, but this is the time to prepare for the colder fall and winter seasons. With rising energy costs, you'll want to warm one room, not your entire home, with a blazing Rasmussen gas log fire. With the convenience and controllability of a natural gas or propane gas log set, you can reduce the time you use your furnace. Gas logs are also an excellent source of emergency heat to keep your family warm during worrisome power outages. Rasmussen gas logs also make your fireplace look great when it's not in use. If your room has a modern or contemporary design, check out Rasmussen's popular fireballs and firestones. Get a free, personalized log set sizing recommendation and more information about USA-made Rasmussen gas logs and Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com. I love these guys. Veteran-owned. Besthotgrill.com. USA-made Rasmussen gas logs and Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com. This is the kind of decision you will not regret. Besthotgrill.com.
As I said last night, there is no place in America for this kind of violence or any violence for that matter. An assassination attempt is contrary to everything we stand for as a nation, everything. It's not who we are as a nation. It's not America. And we cannot allow this to happen. Unity is the most elusive goal of all, but nothing is important than that right now, unity.
It's always good to welcome into the program James Fishback. He heads up Incubate Debate. He is a kind of a renaissance man. He's got a lot of things going. Hi, James.
Michelle, great to be here again.
You know, you reached out to me because there's so much going on, and I thought we got to talk a little bit. I love talking to you about all kinds of topics, but I want to start with you because you are a world-class debater, and because I know that you operate in good faith. There are people that are pointing to Joe Biden's use of the term on a private phone call with donors of bullseye, that may be, incendiary. I didn't find that. To me was a nothing burger. What about you?
Absolutely a nothing burger. I'm an unapologetic conservative, Michelle, and I can tell you that President Biden's comment there was nowhere near as concerning and as incendiary as earlier this month when he said that America wants a president, not a dictator, when he said on June 13th that there's nothing more sacred than our democracy and we can't let Donald Trump burn it to the ground. When he repeated after the near assassination of President Trump this past weekend with Lester Holt, that Donald Trump was calling for a bloodbath, took that comment out of context when he was actually talking about what's been an actual bloodbath for American auto manufacturing in the last 20 years. And so what we learn in high school debate is, and at Incubate Debate, our students practice it, is you have to make arguments in good faith.
Yes.
Are you proud? Are you being honest of what you're trying to articulate? And so I got to tell folks on my side that the Bullseye thing, that's the Target mascot. That's something we think about all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're continuing this pattern, what's been going on now for the past year, since it was clear that President Trump was going to secure this nomination by a landslide, continuing the lies. I mean, Michelle, we've gotten to the point now that even partisan fact checkers like Snopes and PolitiFact are finding religion in saying that Donald Trump has been telling the truth. I mean, Biden is alone with his group of supporters and surrogates in perpetuating these lies about Trump. If Trump actually is a threat to democracy, if he actually is this bad guy, why do you have to lie, distort, and engage in hyperbole at every turn and just stick to the facts? Let's make this a campaign, an election about substance. And I got to tell you, as an unapologetic conservative, if you ask Americans whether they're black, white, straight, or gay, rural, or urban, were you better off under President Trump or are you better off under President Biden? That's what this election is about. And so let's stop the rhetoric that is abusive, that attacks people and attacks their supporters as opposed to attacking their arguments.
Exactly. I mean, they cannot make a cogent argument because all of the things that they're trying to convince us are going to happen didn't happen in his first term. He didn't jail journalists. And this hoax about he told us to inject ourselves with bleach. It's no, he was doing one of his Trump spitball things at that time. And then the one that irks me and that made me, I think, give my first public defense of Trump was the bloodbath comment, which he was talking clearly about the auto industry. And for Nancy Pelosi to be the first Democrat to run to MSNBC and say he's saying there will be a bloodbath if he doesn't win. I can't believe how foolish they think we are. I don't get insulted or offended. I'm just flabbergasted at how stupid they think we are. And now the mantra is Project 2025, Project 2025, Project 2025 is going to ruin America. And this is another one that Trump himself has said, I don't know anything about this. It doesn't matter if people who used to be part of his administration or campaign are working with Heritage or whatever organizations on this thing.
Right.
Both sides come up with these think tanks and groups that coalesce and say, how do we want the country to look?
Right.
And they put their wish list up there. This Project 20, it to me just reeks of another talking point that they're trying to scare the American public with. What do you think?
Absolutely. And you notice, Michelle, they never actually tell you what's in this Project 2025. It's like Mein Kampf. You're not actually allowed to read it. Right. And so we go back to the debate handbook. At Incubate, we call it blueprint. What is the blueprint for your argument? If you're just engaging in hyperbole and not actually tell us the substance, look, Donald Trump's going to be bad for the economy. Donald Trump's going to be bad for the economy. Well, why don't you tell us exactly how this is bad? Why don't you tell us exactly how Project 2025 is going to end American democracy, as they seem to be implying? And so it's just, I mean, this stuff would not fly at an Incubate debate tournament with freshmen in high school. They wouldn't even engage in this kind of bad faith dishonesty. And it's just really sad that we've gotten to this point. I'll tell you, when Speaker Pelosi goes on MSNBC and pushes the bloodbath hoax, they just sit there and they don't ever push back. But if a Republican goes on there and actually speaks the truth about the economic prosperity we saw under 4 years of Donald Trump, they try to get them in a succession of dishonest gotchas. And so it's amazing. And that's why I think the media is complicit, not in this attempted assassination attempt. I'm talking about the general divisiveness in this country where you have to lie about your opponent as opposed to engage with them in good faith.
Morning Joe apparently wasn't going to bring a lot of good faith to the air on Monday, July 15th. They took the show off the air, and the rumors were, and I don't like to engage in rumors, but the leaked reports suggested that they were not convinced that the cast of Morning Joe could be even keeled and level and not say, they were just afraid to put them on the air. What did that tell you?
Well, it's incredible they've made this submission because you and I, Michelle, have known for a long time that these people are not even keeled. They're not honest. They don't bring in the other side. That's the issue. I call this the Morning Joe effect at our team at Incubate. I tell them, you don't want to be in a situation where you created this echo chamber, where you don't allow dissent, where you don't allow the clash of opposing viewpoints. And so Morning Joe in and of itself is a platform that I think is deeply one-sided and dishonest. But I also think that there's Morning Joe echo chambers all across America, whether it's around the water cooler at your DEI HR firm, or whether it's around the dinner table in some households where you don't allow dissenting viewpoint. The reality of the situation is, in America today, debate, as defined by the exchange of opposing viewpoints, is on its deathbed. And so what Morning Joe more than anything represents is a culture of not being able to entertain the other side, of dismissing Trump voters as dirty Walmart shoppers, as characterizing them as MAGA Republicans as a threat to democracy. A vote for Trump, as Republicans Against Trump, the Twitter account yesterday said, a vote for Trump is a vote for Putin. Right? I mean, where is this dialogue coming from the right? I mean, look, you can kind of shake your head at some things that Trump may say. I find most of them to be hilarious and actually in relatively good faith. But the reality of the situation, Michelle, is that they are creating a monster out of Donald Trump. Look at what the word demonize means. Right. Oxford Dictionary. It's to characterize someone in a way that requires almost violence to take them out. And so I wouldn't be surprised as we learn more, and I won't even repeat his name, of this coward that tried to take President Trump's life, took a brave firefighter in Corey from Butler, Pennsylvania's life, and critically wounded 2 others. I don't think there's going to be any surprise, Michelle, that he was slowly but surely indoctrinated and radicalized by this belief that Donald Trump is going to take away your voting rights, is going to take away the democracy, is going to throw blacks in chains, is going to throw Latino Americans, as the Biden campaign recently implied, into concentration camps.
Right.
I mean, this is dangerous stuff.
And it's really ugly. And then they said, oh, assassination attempt, let's tone it down. They toned it down for about 16 minutes, I think, until it just all revved up again. And we've seen that. So here we are. I don't know how many hours now removed from that moment. Last thing for you. How do you think this moment of this assassination attempt, and yes, I'm so, I feel such grief for the family who lost their dad and husband. Such grief. It hurts my stomach. It's awful. But how do you think that moment and Trump popping up and saying, wait a minute, and putting his fist in the air and saying, fight, changed things?
It was an incredible moment. I got to tell you, I was driving on the Florida Turnpike, heading down to see my grandmother, who is maybe Donald Trump's biggest fan. And I looked at my phone and saw this notification that President Trump was shot. And I pulled over, Michelle, and I broke down crying.
Wow. Did you think he was dead? What?
It was, I think, this bundle of emotions that had been building in me. You know, I've met President Trump. I was met with him last month at Mar-a-Lago. And, you know, I'm obviously a supporter of his, but what this act meant for the country, that we crossed a line, we've kept crossing line after line. And I got to tell you, I think there actually has been a reawakening. The 16 minutes of reconciliation ended pretty quickly with President Biden doubling down on those bloodbath hoaxes with Lester Holt last night. But what have we heard from President Trump? Unity. He has said that he has ripped up that RNC speech that focused on President Biden's track record, as it should, but wanted to instead to use that moment to unify the country in the wake of this assassination attempt. And so I actually think we're going to see more unity from President Trump over the next 3 months. I don't think this is going to be a campaign going forward about Biden this or Biden that. It's going to be a campaign about working class Americans from all walks of life uniting behind the Make America Great Again movement to elect Donald Trump, not just 51-49, Michelle, but in a Reagan-style landslide, the likes of which we haven't seen 1980. New Jersey is in play. Virginia is
Minnesota's in play where I live.
Minnesota is in play.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy, but in many ways it's not, because you see everyday Americans, whether they voted for Donald Trump in the last election or not, wake up to the transgender hoax, wake up to the economy, wake up to the border where we have 10, 12,000 people a day coming over here. And really, they're not sending their best. Let's just be completely honest. The best of Mexico, the doctors, the nurses, the business people, they're in Mexico building that economy for the next generation for their kids. The best are not the ones coming over here, trafficking their daughters, subjecting them to sexual assault, as is often the case at the southern border. And so I am prouder today of Donald Trump than I have ever been. We are going to see a unity-based speech on Thursday night, and he is going to unite this country in a way that a president hasn't in a very long time.
I'm eager to see this thing on Thursday. I really am, because I do think it's going to be a vastly different Donald Trump. James Fishback, it's always so great to talk to you. We'll do it again because we have so much to chew on between now and November. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle.
At the heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold near and dear. Actually, we hold it sacred. It is free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist. It is the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. But here we are in a digital age, and conversations about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being muffled or overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And I know that leaves a lot of people feeling like they don't get to raise their voice in these conversations that are crucial to their financial independence and security. And this is where Wealth Protection Research steps in. They've got a mission that's never been more critical, because Wealth Protection Research isn't a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to those who feel they've been silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. Now, these are the voices that challenge the prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has now a 2024 election wealth protection report. It is free. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and for growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media isn't going to touch. And listeners can get it completely free texting ideas to 76626, IDEAS, ideas plural. 76626 is the number to which to text that word. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech, as I do, and the importance of financial freedom, do this now. Text ideas to 76626. Get your free copy of this 2024 election protection report, because it's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment doesn't think you can handle. But of course you can. And to take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to get your free copy. So our thanks to James Fishback for coming on. I'll leave it with this. I think people are finally exhausted of being accused of things they know they're not doing. You've all been called xenophobes if you want the border secure. You're called transphobic if you don't believe that women should be competing against biological men in sports, or that biological men who are now presenting as women, you think they shouldn't be in women's locker rooms. You're called transphobic. You're called a homophobe if you're not called transphobic, right? You're called a racist if you don't like DEI or critical race theory, because you would prefer that everyone just get ahead on their own merits. These are the names you're called now, and you've been called a cultist if you are part of the Republican effort to get Biden out of the White House and Trump back in. You're called a cult member. You're called a deplorable. You've been called that for a long time. You're called a denier if you think that maybe I didn't see everything about January 6th that I should have seen. You're called anti-science if you don't want to get a vaccination. See, the left resorts to name calling. It is their number one weapon, because what they want is, if they call you enough, if they hurl enough of these at you and you start to go, gosh, am I racist? Am I a homophobe? Am I a xenophobe? Gosh, is that right? You'll shut up. You'll stop speaking up about what you believe, which is, yeah, I want a safe border. Yeah, I love the police. I want my daughter to compete against other girls and women, not biological men. This is what I want. And now they're saying a vote for Trump is a vote for Putin. As I recall it, Putin's quote unquote minor incursion, as Joe Biden said he would, accept basically. Putin did that invasion of Ukraine after Trump was out of office. And so, no, I don't think a vote for Trump is a vote for Putin. I think if Trump wants to keep his friends close and his enemies closer, I think that's kind of smart. I really do. So let them call you names. I saw a Twitter thread, an X thread, by a young woman who said she was a Democrat, a liberal, but she started to see things and she started to wonder and she started to ask questions and she started to research and she realized, I'm a conservative. And the bashing that she took from friends, family members, people on Twitter, the names that she was called, this is what they do to get you to shut up. And why do they want you to shut up? So that you feel ashamed, so that you won't speak, so that other people won't speak, so that we'll all be so cowed into a corner that we won't speak. And maybe we won't vote. And maybe we won't support what we want to support. And they will always be the loudest voice in the room, the left. That's the goal of all this name calling. And for those who are saying, the economy is going to be ruined and we're going to fall into the arms of Putin, they don't have empirical data to support that. So they name call and they tell us we're all members of a cult. I think people are damn tired of it. James Fishback said this may be a landslide election. I don't think we should be complacent. I was wrong to suggest that Trump shouldn't be the nominee. Would I have preferred DeSantis? Maybe. No matter who it was going to be, they were going to go after that person with every name that they could. And the fact of the matter is, the one person who seems to be able to withstand all of it and who can jump up after having been grazed with a bullet and tell his voters to fight is Donald Trump. And so there you go. So I would suggest you take my motto to heart: be brave, do good, continue to do good. Smile at people, shake hands, tip people when you can. Just thank people for opening the door, for your groceries, for whatever it is. Do those little bits of good. I am a firm believer in that. And be brave enough to stand on your own 2 feet. Even if you totally disagree with me right now, if you have reason to, I respect that. But be courageous. Argue in good faith, not with name calling. There's no need for that. Be brave, do good, and we'll see you next time.